Forensic evidence helps Tory. What are you talking about? She was lying when she gave that testimony. It just shows how clueless Charlamagne is about this entire case. Is anyone here informed enough to have this discussion? It's half the points he's cited to so far are actually points that help Team Tory, which is just insane, and he doesn't even realize it. Well, folks, the Free Tory Lanez train is chugging along at full speed, and that's because we are not backing down from any of Team Meg's heaviest hitters. We've already debunked big YouTubers like Anthony Fantano and Aba and Preach, but today we might be going after our heaviest hitter yet on Team Meg, and that's Charlamagne Tha God and the Breakfast Club crew. And so in today's video, we are attacking them head on, and we will not stop until we expose just how clueless they are about the Tory Lanez case. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Scotty O, aka the Gen Z attorney, and I currently work as an assistant district attorney in North Carolina, meaning I'm a prosecutor, criminal law guy. I get to be in courtrooms all day, every day, and I make videos on this channel covering these high-profile court cases and really just pulling the curtain back to let y'all know what's really going on with them. And recently, I've mainly been making videos on the Tory Lanez case, and this is a case I'm going to continue to cover because I ran a poll over on my X account asking you fine people what kind of content you want to see moving forward, and I saw through that poll that y'all want to see me keep hammering on this case, so that's what I'm going to do. And so if you like this kind of content, drop a like down below to let me know to make more of it, and if you like honest, unbiased breakdowns of high-profile court cases, then be sure to subscribe to come back for more. And last but not least, of course, I want to see y'all down in the comments. I love responding to the comments down there. I want to see what y'all have to say about Mr. Charlamagne Tha God here and his crew and what they have to say about this case. But yeah, that's enough yapping. Let's just jump into this reaction. Alright folks, here we have it. This is the Breakfast Club's YouTube channel, their video called Tory Lanez New Claims Emerge in Megan Thee Stallion Shooting. So, right, talking about the new evidence that has come out in the case. As with all these videos, I will keep an open mind as to what is said and give credit where credit is due when and if any good points are made. But if the past coverage on Team Meg and her defenders has been any indication, I'm expecting to see the same old recycled talking points that we've already debunked a million times, which reminds me, yeah, I've covered this case super in depth already. If you have not gone and watched my other videos on it by now, highly recommend that you do, because yeah, it really covers every aspect of this case very in depth. But regardless, like I said, I'm expecting to hear the same old talking points, but no matter how many times we hear these same points, we will debunk them every time until Tory is free. So with that in mind, let's jump into this video.
Good morning, everybody. We are the Breakfast Club. Jess Hilarious is out in Atlanta, and she hasn't been sleep. She hasn't went to sleep as of yet. She was at the club all night. She had a great time. She's a little twisted.
Yes.
But let's get to the latest with Lauren.
Okay, so Tory Lanez, his legal team is claiming that they have a statement from a bodyguard of Kelsey's. Kelsey's was Meg's best friend, Meg Thee Stallion's best friend, claiming that he overheard some things that changes Tory Lanez sitting in jail. That Tory Lanez is not guilty, and Kelsey is. Let's take a listen.
And yeah, this really is the bombshell new evidence. Bradlie James, like she said, Kelsey Harris's bodyguard, stating that he overheard Kelsey during the trial admitting to her attorney and her husband that she is the one that actually shot Meg and not Tory. Specifically, she shot 3 shots up into the air, and then Tory grabbed her arm and pushed her arm down, and as he was doing that, that's when the 2 additional shots fired. Presumably those are the ones that hit Meg in the feet. And he has since come forward and swore to an affidavit swearing to these statements. Yes, it's not as high of a bar as in-court testimony that you swear to, but still, a sworn affidavit is not insignificant. But either way, yes, let's hear from Tory's team and hear what he has to say.
Not long ago, Unite the People was approached by a gentleman named Bradlie James. Mr. James informed us he was working as the bodyguard and driver for Miss Kelsey Harris during Mr. Peterson's trial. As such, he was in close proximity and he had privy to conversations she was having with her husband and others. Mr. James informed us he was not under a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement and was free to speak with Unite the People. Mr. James informed Unite the People that he was a witness to the conversation Miss Harris had where she stated she had the gun, she fired it 3 times, Mr. Peterson grabbed her arm and knocked it down, and the gun fired 2 more times. In essence, Mr. Peterson never shot anybody, never even touched that gun, never fired the gun.
And I'm glad that's a pretty good chunk of the statement, so I do appreciate that. I mean, how long was that? 133 to 220. So yeah, that's almost a minute of statement here from Tory's team, which is good. I'll give them credit for that. The one thing I really can't stand more than anything else is clipping people out of context. That's why you can see from the reaction videos I've done on this channel, from Fantano to Aba and Preach, I've watched the whole video. I didn't show you the clips I wanted you to see. I wanted you to see everything that they offered, and so we could talk about all of it in context. So appreciate that they showed a really pretty significant chunk of that press conference. But yeah, as for the claims itself, yeah, he's laying it out pretty bare that it's a plausible theory, a very plausible theory. I think it's actually the most likely theory or most likely explanation of events of what happened that night, because that's the only way What happened there with Kelsey had the gun, she was the one shooting, Tory grabbed her arm and was wrestling the gun away from her. That is the only sequence of events that explains how gunshot residue got on both Kelsey's hand and Tory's hand, and explains how Tory's DNA was excluded as being the 90% primary contributor and was inconclusive as to whether or not he was the 5% contributor, 3% contributor, or 2% contributor. Because certainly those key facts there about the gunshot residue and the DNA are not explained at all by Meg's version of events, which is that she was walking away from the car and then she turns around and sees Tory leaning out of the car by himself, out of the front passenger seat by himself with the gun, points it at her, tells her to dance bitch, and shoots at her feet. That explanation, there is no world, like literally, it is literally impossible to explain how gunshot residue got on Kelsey's hand if Tory is the one leaning out of the passenger seat while Kelsey sits in the back seat. There's no explanation whatsoever that would explain how the gunshot residue got on both their hands. So we know Meg was lying about what happened, which, I mean, is that a shock? Because she also lied about, she didn't put her hands on anybody, but all the evidence from that night shows that her and Kelsey were clearly fighting. And on top of all the other inconsistencies in her testimony, from her saying she never slept with Tory to later admitting to lying about that, there's so much that's wrong with Meg, her entire involvement with this case, that her testimony, we just cannot believe it at all, which leads us to the question of, well, what happened then? And how do we explain the forensic evidence at the scene? Well, guess what? The way Bradlie James explains it, very clear and very plausible as the actual sequence of events of what happened that night.
If he heard that during the trial, why wouldn't he say something then?
Well, now, question I do.
So we're doing, okay, well, we're doing that. You see what I'm saying, though? It is the same old, tired, recycled talking points. There's nothing new under the sun, as I say. And here we go again, just trying to not actually engage with what Bradlie James was saying, not engage with how his explanation matches up with the forensic evidence, no engagement with the actual substance of the statement itself and the details he was able to recall about when he heard it, where he heard it, the fact that he specifically says he was at a restaurant called Fixin's, he was with Kelsey and her husband and her attorney, and she was asking, how do I not tell on myself? And also specifically stating that she fired 3 shots up in the air, it was a pause, and then the 2 more shots were fired, which corroborates with the ring audio when you can hear the cadence of the gunshots, how it was 3, pause, 2. There's just no engagement with the substance at all of what Bradlie James is offering. It's just trying to dismiss it entirely, which goes to show you, by the way, that they have no confidence whatsoever in their position. Team Meg just has really nothing to go off of, because if they had nothing to be scared of, then why not just engage with the substance? Why are they trying to play semantic games and try and get you to just not even consider key pieces of evidence because they're bad for their side? I'm over here on Team Tory, and I've been upfront with all of you on what I think are the best arguments, what I think are not as strong arguments. Because right, I have no dog in this fight. I'm just here to call balls and strikes and try and ultimately deliver justice in the end. And so it is just so telling to see how biased and committed that the people on Team Meg are. It shows they're committed to an ideological outcome, which is that Tory Lanez has to stay in jail because they just love Megan Thee Stallion, and she couldn't possibly have been lying about anything because she's Meg. So please, and we're right, granted, we're early in the video, so maybe something else happens, but please, I want to see just anyone on Team Meg, please, maybe people in the comments, Herbert Freeman, Deborah Kim, still have an open invite to both of you. Come on the channel, let's talk about this case live, and I'll post it for everybody to see. Somebody on Team Meg, please explain to me what is wrong, what is missing, what is incomplete, what is misleading about anything Bradlie James said. Are any of his details wrong? Was he not a bodyguard for Kelsey? Was he not with her on these dates to the point where he could not have possibly overheard her? How does his testimony rebut any of the forensic evidence from the scene? Like, there's just so many, it's just such a good statement, and none of them are willing to engage with it head on, which is, yeah, it's just so telling.
I do have a question. Unite the People, I know it's a team of lawyers and activists who fight for social justice, but are they Tory Lanez's attorney, or they are an independent agency that just helps people in their cases?
No, they are, as I've been speaking to them, they are Tory Lanez attorneys. Yep. Okay. It's a group of them. It's a group of, there's multiple attorneys that work on cases together, and they specifically work with people who they feel like are put in a bad position because of the justice system.
Okay.
Which, by the way, that brings up another great point with all these videos, is the hilarious irony, because people like Charlamagne Tha God, he will be the first one to tell you that the U.S. justice system has been skewed against black people. It's been used to oppress and marginalize and discriminate against people of color for literally centuries. Like, he'll be the first one to tell you that, and systemic racism, institutional bias and whatnot. Like, he'll be the first one, the first in line to point out all the ways in which the justice system has been weaponized against particularly black men. Yet here we have a group, Unite the People, which is a group specifically organized, actually putting their money where their mouth is in fighting these battles in courtrooms to try and combat these weaponizations of the justice system against black men. And not only are you not standing with them in that fight, you're actively standing against them and standing with the weaponization of the justice system. And the fact that they don't see this irony, and maybe they do see the irony, but they try and explain it away by saying, well, yes, I think the justice system has been skewed and weaponized and used to marginalize and oppress, but that's just a general rule. This specific case here, this case is good because the facts of this case, the evidence of this case, show that what Meg was saying is true and that Tory should be in prison. Which certainly you can make the argument that, well, maybe we should take things on a case-by-case basis, but guess what? Now you're making the same argument as the people that are saying there is no systemic racism, because if you actually look at cases on a case-by-case basis, you see that people are largely getting the outcomes that they deserve. Yes, the prison population, the people in there for violent crimes, are disproportionately black, but maybe that's because the percent of the population that's committing violent crimes is also disproportionately black. Now, I'm not here to take a position on that one way or another, but I am pointing out that Charlamagne Tha God would be the first person to call you racist, or at least contributing into systemic racism if you were to make that point. Yet here he is, unironically and uncritically parroting those points. And I don't even think he realizes it, which is what makes it so ironic.
My question: If the bodyguard driver heard that during the trial, why wouldn't he say something then?
And here we go. Yes, like I said, yeah, same old talking points. Like Charlamagne's only offered 2 points, 2 statements into this entire discussion so far. We're 3 minutes in. He's offered 2 statements, and they've both been the same statement. It's just been, well, why didn't he come forward sooner? Which, if you actually read the statement, if you read Bradlie James' affidavit, you would see he says exactly why he didn't come forward sooner. In fact, he says it like 2 lines below the actual meat of what he's saying about overhearing Kelsey. Like, it's right there. All you have to do is read it. But maybe that's too much to ask for someone of this caliber, this popularity. Of course, he's the one that gets to go on national TV, and we're just here on YouTube building our own community of people who actually care about the law, care about justice, and care about the truth. So yeah, maybe that's too much to ask for him to just read literally like 2 or 3 lines down. But that's assuming he even read the affidavit at all, which I can guarantee you he has not.
I'm not for sure. There was something about it. Actually, I do know the answer to that question. Give me a second, because there was something that he said about an NDA.
What?
No. He said he didn't sign
There was
it.
no NDA. He could.
I don't know that. I just remember the conversation about an NDA. But if he said he didn't sign one, I have no.
Well, how does she not know either? She's supposed to be the person who's like bringing the facts of like, hey, here's what happened. How do you not know the reason why he didn't come forward sooner? He says it in his affidavit. He says because as a bodyguard for high-profile celebrity clients, you are trusted to be confidential. You are trusted to hear things that you are not supposed to hear, but it's okay if you hear them because you're not going to tell them to anybody else. That's the whole point of being a celebrity bodyguard, is having confidentiality. And he was worried, rightfully so, that if he came forward and said what he overheard, then his career as a bodyguard would be severely jeopardized, and his ability to provide for his family would be severely jeopardized. It's the same reason for why a woman who gets assaulted by her boss or a coworker, why she is fearful to come forward, because that might risk her career. So it's the same argument that we use in the hashtag #MeToo movement, that they have no problem using it there. But now you want to talk about a case where you're on the other side and you want the guy to stay in jail. Now you do have a problem with that? It's just so disingenuous. But yeah, the fact that she doesn't even know that either is like, your job was to actually read the stuff here and bring the facts, bring the evidence to this discussion. But apparently you didn't read the affidavit either, because it is 2 lines below the facts of what he's recalling of overhearing Kelsey. It's just crazy. Well, I mean, is anyone here informed enough to have this discussion? Am I the only one?
No idea, but I will say people are asking why Tory Lanez didn't say something at the time in court. And y'all remember Tory Lanez came out with that letter, and he was accusing Sean Hawley of basically not letting.
Wait, what do you mean? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what she's about to say, but what do you mean Tory Lanez didn't say something sooner? He didn't know. No one knew. No one knew what Bradlie James overheard until Bradlie James came forward and told people what he overheard. So how is this now Tory's fault for not speaking up sooner or saying something at the trial? What is this? What is this conversation?
Letting him testify when he said that he wanted to. He said that he didn't want to take the plea deal and he wanted to be able to speak for himself. But this is interesting, like how does.
So now Tory's mad he couldn't, or y'all are saying Tory's mad because he couldn't testify. Look, just Google it, people. Google should a criminal defendant testify for himself at trial. Everyone will say, as the overwhelming general rule, Absolutely not. The risk you run just far outweighs any potential benefit you could get from a defendant testifying. And so, yeah, Tory, maybe he's upset because his lawyers were strongly counseling him to not testify, which I'm telling you, any lawyer worth their salt will tell their client, their criminal defendant client, yes, it's a bad idea for you to testify. Doesn't mean you should never testify. And maybe this is a case where maybe he could have been benefited from testifying if he took the stand and specifically called out Kelsey as being the shooter. Yeah, that could have helped him. Not in the eyes of Team Meg, I'm sure, because I love Team Meg. He loves making this point that, well, he should have testified. Why didn't he testify? It's like, okay, so you're telling me if he would have testified, would that change your mind on this case at all? Because I would argue I'd put $100 down. No. All these people that are saying, well, he should have testified, that are making all the same talking points for Team Meg, that would not have changed their minds at all. You would just found some other point in this case that you're going to harp on to argue for why he should stay in jail. So don't make an argument as to something he should have done if it wouldn't have changed your mind. But yeah, as far as the decision to not testify, I think his lawyers gave him good legal advice to not do so. Although, yes, I can understand why he might be frustrated now, considering the outcome, considering hindsight is 2020. You're looking back and trying to see, well, is there anything I could have done differently? And that's certainly something that could have been done differently.
This whole thing came up because it came from a writer at the New York Post. Let's take a listen to that part of it.
The New York Post recently reached out to the prior district attorney, George Gaston, Megan Pete, and her representatives, and Kelsey Harris and her representatives. The only party that responded last week was Megan Pete's representatives with a request for more information. A few days later, Mr. Peterson's brutally attacked in his jail cell.
Now that's a big claim. Because
I don't even know what the claim was. If there was a claim that was made, it was not made in that clip you just played. All that was played in that clip was that some information was sent out and Meg's team responded and then Tory got stabbed. Like you'd have to actually, if there was a claim that was made, it was not there. You'd have to play more of the press conference. But I guess I'll just say, as far as the implication that Meg and Team Meg had anything to do with Tory getting stabbed, I mean, I haven't seen any evidence for that. If someone has something that I haven't seen yet, then be sure to send it. But yeah, as is with all things in the law, just show me the evidence, and then we'll consider it, and go from there. But I've not seen any evidence to suggest that Team Meg was any way involved with Tory getting stabbed.
Because basically they're pinpointing.
Which, yeah, that is something you definitely will need evidence for if you're going to make that argument. Please, all my good viewers watching, please do not make that argument unless you have any sort of evidence to back it up. Because, like I've said through my other videos, we need to focus on our best arguments in this case. And that's going to be the gunshot residue, it's going to be the DNA evidence, and that's going to be Bradlie James' statement. Those are the three best arguments. There's more we can make, like Meg's inconsistency, her repeated lies that we can prove, like definitively, her lying about this case. Kelsey's changing of her story over time. There's a lot we can argue on, but focus on our good arguments. Don't get sucked into the bad ones.
Because there's a lot of theories running online that this is like a whole setup and blah, 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 blah. And these attorneys are leaning into that. That's a huge claim to throw on Meg Thee Stallion's legal team. And Meg Thee Stallion's legal team actually issued a statement. They sent us a statement, and the statement basically said that this was already decided in court and they're not going to go back and forth. Alex Spiro said Tory Lanez was tried and convicted by a jury of his peers and his case was properly adjudicated through the court system. This is not a political matter. This is a case of violent assault that was resolved in the court of law.
Of course, Meg's team is going to say, basically, it's the end of a basketball game. Your team just won. Let's say it was overtime. It was a close game, but your team won. The other team, they're mad they lost. They're talking trash. They're saying you suck. And all you got to do is, point to the scoreboard and tell them, scoreboard, because you won. It doesn't matter how you won. What matters at the end of the day is that you got the dub and the losing team can suck it. And that's basically what Meg's team is saying here. Is like, look, we tried the case and we won. So, ha, nana, boo-boo, go home, sore losers.
That's right. None of us really know what happened that night. We weren't there. But just like the attorney just said, Tory was found guilty in a court of law. And you just look at the evidence. Megan's testimony, medical records that confirm she had bullet fragments in her feet, the apologetic jail call from Tory, the neighbor who testified that they saw Tory fire the gun, the forensic evidence because the gun used in the shooting was found in Tory's vehicle. The DNA was inconclusive, but that was the evidence the jury used to convict him. So I just asked two simple questions. If you know they have all that evidence against you, if you're Tory Lanez, why wouldn't you just take the stand and simply say Kelsey shot her? And what reason would Megan have not to tell on Kelsey?
Bro. All right, let's go back and listen to what Charlamagne has to say, because that was a lot there, and that was a lot of nonsense. So let's take it piece by piece and just debunk it one point at a time.
Attorney just said Tory was found guilty in a court of law. And you just look at.
Yeah, I already went over that. Yeah, of course they're going to say that. They're pointing at the scoreboard because they technically got the win. Doesn't matter that the refs might have sucked and called the game incredibly one-sided. Didn't matter that one team was taking way better shots that just weren't going in. They're pointing at the scoreboard because they won, even though they didn't deserve to, and they're just saying, ha, we won.
Get the evidence. Megan's testimony, medical.
Oh, what do you mean? Okay. Look, he's trying to get by that so fast. He's trying to list these off like real rapid fire to make it sound like, oh, look, there's all this evidence. But yeah, let's take it piece by piece. Point number 1, Megan's testimony. What was convincing about Meg's testimony? Please. And how is Meg's testimony got any credibility left over whatsoever in light of all the time she was exposed as lying about this case? So yeah, you can say Meg's testimony helped her, but it absolutely did not. And you wanted to make this big point about, oh, well, let's look at the evidence then. Actually cite the good evidence then. Don't cite stuff that's actually terrible evidence for your side and just assume that everyone's going to buy it. So yeah, Meg's testimony, absolutely not. Terrible evidence whatsoever. There's no way her testimony about what happened with it being Tory leaning out of the car and shooting her, there's no way that happened. That is false based on the other testimony of the other people there. That is false based on the forensic evidence. That's false based on the gunshot residue. There's just no possible world, which means very simply, she's lying. She's lying. And so you can't just say her testimony is strong because she was lying. She was lying when she gave that testimony. I'm sorry. I don't know how many other ways I can say it.
Records that confirm she had bullet fragments in her.
Okay, medical records with the bullet fragments. Look, I'm conceding on that one. I understand the people watching y'all love the argument that she stepped on glass. I'm not saying she didn't step on glass. I saw the video. The bottle fell. She stepped where the bottle fell. Certainly, that could have been part of her injuries to her feet. But when you've just got multiple doctors that are looking at this, you've got the X-rays. Yeah, y'all need, please look at the X-rays, the actual trial exhibit, what was offered at trial. There were X-rays that were offered that show solid fragments of something in her feet. I don't think that could be glass because glass does not show up that solid on an X-ray. So on the medical records point, look, this is one of those things that I was talking about earlier. Don't let them suck you into the bad arguments for us, because this is one of those. The medical records, the whole, I'm calling it the glass argument. I understand. Look, I see all of your comments. I read all the comments, and I consider them fairly, I think. This is one of those things that Team Meg wants to argue on. They want to suck us in to have the whole debate about whether or not she was actually shot, because they actually have decent evidence to support their side, which is that she was shot. So that's why I'm conceding that. Don't fight on that. Force them to fight on our turf about the gunshot residue, about the DNA, about Meg's inconsistencies, about Bradlie James' statement. There's so many good arguments we can use. We just have to actually use them. We actually have to actually be debating about them. But so yes, I'll concede this. Charlamagne, medical records. Okay, point for you. Congratulations.
Her feet. The apologetic jail call from.
Okay, the apologetic jail call. We've been over this too. Tory has explained why he made the jail call and why he was apologizing, and it was for the entire situation, which makes sense. If he's the one, it was his actions, him sleeping with both Meg and Kelsey, two best friends. He knew he was sleeping with both of them, and that gets exposed, especially since Kelsey, at my understanding at this point, her current husband, she was very deeply involved with. I don't think they were married yet at the time, but they were maybe fiance. I'm not sure exactly, but they were obviously on track to becoming husband and wife. And so Kelsey does not want it to be revealed that she's cheating on him. But not only is she cheating on him, she's cheating on him with a guy who's also sleeping with her best friend. So this is just a super messy, super sloppy, dramatic situation that gets exposed. It leads to a fight where Kelsey gets her ass handed to her by Meg, who's much larger than her. And we saw the injuries. It was the scratches. It was the clumps of hair missing. It was the nail that was broken. The nails that were broken. It was the bathing suit strap that was broken. There's bruises that were there. There was just Kelsey got her ass handed to her. No other way of putting it. And so now, and then of course at the end of it all, it leads to Kelsey getting a gun and shooting in a way that leads to Meg getting shot. And so Tory feels some responsibility, some culpability for the situation that led to this horrible outcome. And so yeah, it actually makes sense why he would call and apologize. But y'all are using that, trying to use that against him as exhibit A of why he's guilty. Okay, it's the apology. Okay, maybe at the end of the day, all we can do is we can only infer one way or another what he truly meant. The only person who truly knows what he meant is Tory. We've got his explanation, what he stated, what it meant. But I guess it's just going to be to each their own on what we take away, what we believe he meant by that apology.
Tory, the neighbor who testified that they saw Tory fire the gun.
Yeah, the same neighbor, Sean Kelly, who also testified that the girls were fighting, thus debunking Meg's testimony, which you just pointed out. Let's not forget, he just pointed to Meg's testimony as being credible. But here, now you're citing the neighbor who just debunked Meg's testimony, A. B, the same neighbor who testified that the gunfire originated between the women while they were fighting. Yes, he testified that then Tory gets out and he starts shooting everywhere. But guess what? At the end of the day, Tory was charged and convicted of assault with a firearm, which is a specific intent crime, which means in order to prove that, the prosecutors had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he intentionally shot Meg. If we take what Sean Kelly said as gospel, which is that Tory got out of the car and was just shooting in all directions, guess what? That's not assault with a firearm because there's no intent to that. There's no specific intent to shoot Meg. So yeah, Sean Kelly's testimony is not what you think it is. It is not the silver bullet that you think it is. But of course, you're gonna cite to it because, and this is what I pointed out in my other video too, that the people that are selectively citing Sean Kelly's statements to serve their side, that just shows their bias. Because the truth is, Sean Kelly gave statements that were helpful to both sides and hurtful to both sides. And so anyone who's just trying to sell Sean Kelly as like the godsend that proves their side, they're not being honest with you because, yes, like I'm saying, the truth is that he did stuff that helped both sides, which is why to me, his testimony was kind of a wash because also if we take what he said as gospel, that would require there be two guns. First, between the ladies when that first shot was fired, and second, with Tory when he started shooting everywhere. But we know there was not two guns. So his testimony was just not that credible, I thought. But yeah, like I'm saying, at the very least, if you take what he says as gospel, you still have to vote not guilty on Tory intentionally shooting Meg.
Forensic evidence because the gun used in the shooting was found in Tory's vehicle.
The forensic evidence. The forensic evidence helps Tory. What are you talking about? The forensic evidence, like the gunshot residue being on both their hands. The forensic evidence, like the DNA, which excluded Tory as being the 90% contributor and was inconclusive as to whether or not he was a minor contributor of 5% or less. Like, the forensic evidence go back to my video of the 3 best arguments for Team Tory. 2 of those 3 arguments are forensic. It's the gunshot residue and the DNA evidence. So again, he's just going to uncritically say, oh, the forensic evidence helps Team Meg. No, that's ridiculous. And it just shows how clueless Charlamagne is about this entire case. He doesn't know the facts. Yeah, he's citing off a bunch of facts, but who's to say he doesn't have them there on his laptop right there? Like, oh, here's just 5 bullet points that ChatGPT gave me for me to sound smart about this case. But half of the arguments, half the points he cited to so far are actually points that help Team Tory, which is just insane, and he doesn't even realize it, which is it's kind of comedy gold if you look at it that way. But also really sad because, like I said earlier, he's like defender number 1 of the justice system is systemically racist and it is used to oppress and marginalize black and brown people. And yet here you are participating in that weaponization. Oh my gosh, the irony. It is a rich irony, but it's also tragic because a man who should not have been found guilty is in jail. And just had to fight for his life from being stabbed 14 times. So it's a cruel irony that he gets to sit here and make millions of dollars just spreading absolute nonsense about something. He's just clueless. He's clueless about it.
The DNA was inconclusive, but that was the evidence the jury used to convict him. So I just...
Okay, and then you want to mention the DNA. He doesn't even know what happened with the DNA evidence either. Doesn't know that the 90% excluded Tory. The only inconclusive part of the DNA was the minor contributors, of which most of the minor contributors was 5% of the DNA. It was 5%, 3%, and 2%, and he was inconclusive as to being any of those. But yeah, he was excluded as the primary contributor who had 90% of the DNA on the gun. It's these people, they give me... I try and be neutral, I try and be fair, but sometimes these people just get me so worked up just because they are so flippant with the truth. And they don't even realize it. Or maybe they do. And if they do realize it, then they're just being malicious actors, which is even worse. But at least if they just don't know, at least I can cut them some slack as like, oh, you just don't know what happened. But I find that hard to believe. He has to know what happened because how else do you have such a huge platform with people willing to listen to you talk about what happened? It's a simple credibility question. Why would people listen to you talk about what happened if you don't know what happened? Which, to me, so in the best case scenario here, he just doesn't know. And the worst case scenario, he does know and he's lying. Either way, not good. Not good.
Ask 2 simple questions. If you know they have all that evidence against you, if you're Tory Lanez, why wouldn't you just take the stand and simply say Kelsey shot her? And
I've already been over this. I'm not going to repeat it largely. Just it's conventional wisdom to not do it. Maybe hindsight, maybe with 2020 hindsight, maybe he should have taken the stand. But any criminal lawyer will tell you, it's generally a terrible, not just a bad idea, like a terrible idea that will literally lose a winning case. You will snatch defeat from the jaws of victory if you have your criminal defendant testify. So it's just not a good argument there, buddy.
And what reason would Megan have not to tell on Kelsey?
Well, that's easily explainable too, because Megan doesn't actually know who shot her. Because under what actually happened, based on all the people who were there that night that have now come forward and explained what happened, Meg was getting wrestled away. Meg was beating Kelsey bad. Jaquan Smith, the bodyguard, gets out of the car and is wrestling Meg away from Kelsey. As he's wrestling her away, Kelsey gets the gun and Kelsey starts shooting. Shoots it up into the air. Next thing you know, Tory is grabbing at her arm and pushing her arm down. So I don't think Meg knows who shot, because I don't even know if Tory and Kelsey know who shot those two shots, because they were both wrestling over a live gun with fingers on the trigger. So yeah, it's not as simple as, well, why didn't Meg just point the finger at Kelsey? Because yeah, Meg doesn't know who shot her.
I agree with you 1,000%. But if this is a fact and this is true, what this bodyguard is saying, I think it should be listened to see if it's proven or not.
Thank you. Finally, it's the first reasonable take I've heard in this whole video. Thank you. What is it? DJ Envy, at DJ Envy. Thank you, my good man. It's like a breath of fresh air to hear someone give a somewhat of a reasonable take. Now, maybe he's about to nuke it here by saying, well, no, maybe he's lying. I don't know. But at least the first part, he's just saying maybe we should actually listen to what he has to say.
Regardless, because it could open up some other things. Because at the end of the day, whether you are on Tory's side or Megan's side, you want the truth, right?
Yes.
And if he knows something, he should be able to speak.
Well, why
his
wouldn't
truth,
he say that during the trial?
I'm with you.
Look at that. Oh my God, Charlamagne. It's the third time in the video started 1 minute. Third time in 4 minutes, he's made the same point. This is what I mean when I say these are just recycled, regurgitated talking points with no substance whatsoever. Because the answer is explained. The answer is explained in the affidavit why he didn't come forward sooner. But that's the only thing he's going to go back to. Well, I guess he tried to dip his toe into something else by actually talking about some of the facts of the case. Yet, as I just explained, he has no idea what he's talking about there. He's just reading off some bullet point list there. So he's falling back on the thing he's the most comfortable with, probably because he's seen it happen so much with the Me Too type cases. When a woman comes forward, when we've got people that are trying to question a story, main thing being, well, why didn't you come forward sooner? He's been the one on the woman's side explaining that away. So he understands how good of an argument that can be if you've got a story that really has no corroborating factors. So maybe that's why he keeps going back to it. But man, gosh, just demonstrate the tiniest iota of knowledge about this case, please. And I will my respect for you will go from like 0% to maybe 1%. Little by little, we got to build the respect and the trust and the credibility back, just little by little, my guy.
Driver of bodyguard allegedly overheard that conversation while the trial was happening. Why wouldn't you say something then?
I'm 1,000% with you.
I know
No, DJ Envy, why? I was rocking with you, giving some reasonable takes, but now you just said you 1,000% agree, wondering why he didn't come forward sooner. It just goes to show no one here actually read the affidavit, which is just it's so frustrating. Because I want to have informed discussions about cases like this, and it's impossible to do when no one who's talking about them is informed. Like, is that really too much to ask?
I do remember from the press conference that they said that the bodyguard, the reason why he came out was because, or came to like them with the information, was because he felt bad. He said he felt guilty seeing couldn't sleep seeing an innocent man, according to him, sitting behind bars.
So once again, why wouldn't you say something then? Like everybody was following that trial.
I guess it was conscious.
Everybody knew the evidence that was against him. So if you felt that way, then you should have said something. At the end of the day, choices were made, and the choice to not take the stand, Tory Lanez, and defend yourself and tell your truth was a poor choice.
I agree 1,000.
So just repeating the same point again. Why didn't come forward sooner? And then just demonstrating not only lack of knowledge about this specific case, but just a lack of knowledge about the law generally, and a lack of knowledge about the criminal law specifically. Like, bro, I don't get it. I don't get how people do this. How do you talk about topics that you just have no knowledge whatsoever to have an informed opinion on? I would be mortified. I would be petrified to try and give my 2 cents on any topic that I don't consider myself very knowledgeable in. Like, if you were to ask me about a nuclear reactor, how nuclear fission works, I'm not even going to begin to try and tell you anything, because I have no clue. I have no idea how nuclear fission works. But it's because I recognize my limitations here. That's why on this channel, I only talk about big cases and specifically stuff happening in the criminal law, because that's what I do all day, every day. And yet here we have people that are making millions of dollars with just such an utter lack of knowledge. It's astounding. I don't know how else to say it.
Listen, but you still want the facts. Like, you want the truth of, regardless of whose side you're on, whose team you're on. You want the truth to make sure people are making the right decision.
At the end of the day, the choice to not take the stand and defend yourself and tell your truth was a poor choice.
Well, okay, so first I want to answer your question. So the bodyguard said that he didn't say anything because he was Kelsey's bodyguard, and he said that he felt an obligation to protect Kelsey. Now he's saying his conscience won't let him go forward. Just
so close. She was so close. I thought she was actually gonna. I thought maybe, because she realized how uninformed this discussion was, she pulled up on her computer like, oh, what was Bradlie James' actual statement, and she was gonna recite, oh, he didn't come forward because he was fearful that he might lose his ability to provide for his family. Just that slight insignificant reason. But no, I mean, maybe we got a little bit of that of like, he felt he had to protect Kelsey, the confidentiality as being her bodyguard, which I guess is kind of somewhat to the point, but that really doesn't get to the meat of why specifically, the main reason why he did not come forward sooner.
Yo, let freedom ring. And y'all thought I was asleep, yo. No. All I'm saying is he got stabbed hella times, and that's sad. And y'all playing the wrong instrumental for this sad stuff, yo.
Lights, camera, action.
I mean, yeah.
We on, baby.
This is so sad.
Just, we on.
I will say, though, I think they've been trying to get Tory free for a little minute, and I think they have.
And he said in the album, it's evidence. He said in the album that he coming home this year.
Shut up, Jess.
Well,
he did say that. I swear he said that. Y'all ain't listen to the album. He said he coming home this year.
The funny part is y'all can't see Jess, but she'll fall asleep and then she'll just pop up and
ain't nobody falling asleep.
Freedom ring.
Jess,
what's kind of funny is that they're making fun of this girl for not really giving very good input to the substance of the conversation. That she's just falling asleep, and then she'll just get up and say, let freedom ring, and then but the irony of that is like, and what have y'all done that's any better? What have y'all contributed to this discussion, to this case, to this discourse surrounding this case that's any better than this girl who's just asleep the whole time and got up to say, let freedom ring? Like that's the level. Y'all are on the same level of input, which it's just, when you look at it that way, it's hilarious at that point. Alrighty, that is my full reaction to The Breakfast Club and their commentary on the updates to the Tory Lanez case and the new evidence that came out. And I must say, I am probably even more disappointed than I expected to be going into it. I was not expecting much. The bar was quite low. It was maybe like 2 or 3 inches off the ground. But the bar is currently now at the ground. It is flat against the ground when it comes to my faith and my trust in The Breakfast Club, and specifically Charlamagne Tha God, to have any sort of informed discussion about really any topic, at least any topic of importance, because the ignorance on display here, it's not only sad to see, because first off, this is your job. You get paid millions of dollars to provide insight that people want to listen to, talking about stuff like this. So it's not only sad to see how little effort you put into covering this case, but it's also just cruel, because we're talking about a system that has been weaponized and used in targeted ways to discriminate, oppress, marginalize specifically people of color. And this case is just like exhibit A of a young, successful black man that was accused of something by a more powerful, more influential black woman. And basically she was able to wield her greater outsized power and influence to get people to believe what she's saying, even though her story makes no sense whatsoever. And she was able to use that story and use her influence to sway a jury and sway a bunch of people in the court of public opinion into believing Tory's guilty and that he deserves to go to jail for 10 years. And here you are actively perpetuating the discriminatory use of the legal system in a way that flies in the face of truth, flies in the face of justice, flies in the face of facts and evidence. And either you don't know what you're doing, which is just unacceptably ignorant at that point, or you do know what you're doing, at which point it's just maliciously cruel, and also points you out as a hypocrite and a fraud when you talk about anything having to do with the criminal justice system and its impact on people of color in particular. So really, I don't think I could be more disappointed at, and even the supporting cast here, they also seem to have basically no knowledge about this case whatsoever. Even the one lady who seemed to be the one that was supposed to be, putting the facts out there for the panel to discuss, and she didn't even really seem to know what was going on with the case. So just all in all, just thoroughly disappointed with the Breakfast Club here. So yeah, that's going to do it for this video. If you like this kind of content covering the Tory Lanez versus Meg Thee Stallion case, then of course, be sure to drop a like, let me know to make more. And if you like this kind of content covering these high profile cases generally, then subscribe to come back for more. And of course, as always, I want to see y'all down in the comments. Let me know what you think about this response, this reaction, because I'm sure y'all are going to have a field day with this one. And last but not least, yeah, go check me out on X. Give me a follow there at the Gen Z Attorney. And I'm going to put a poll up about what y'all want me to cover next with the Tory Lanez case. I've got several ideas of what aspects I want to cover with this, but I'm just going to put them into a poll and see what y'all think. And yeah, you just let me know which piece of this case you really are dying to see me cover next. So yeah, go check it out on X, vote there, and I will make that into my next video. But once again, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for being here, helping build this community. It is great to see it happen in real time, and I just could not be happier to make these videos for you guys. So I just hope you stick around and continue to enjoy. But with all that said, I look forward to seeing you all on the next one.